Okay, we're going to get started with today's PulumiVision, which nobody's on the stream yet, but that's okay. But you might be watching this later. And so for the moment, I'm going to take a minute and kind of get myself a little organized here. Um, let's see. For those of you, anyway, sorry, I should be talking while I'm doing things. What I was doing here is just cloning down websites. So, what I am doing, who's here? I bet you it's Engine. Hi, Engine. So, a couple little bits of background on what we're trying to accomplish. So, if we go take a look here, I'm going to show you the website that I'm working with. So if I go ahead and I say share Chrome tab, okay. So this is a very elaborate Hugo website. So this is the source code for mattstratton.com, which I haven't really done much with in a while, but this is what it is. This is basically where my blog is. And as you can see, I haven't written a blog in a while, but this is a Hugo. It's using Hugo's the static site generator. Now, currently, what I do with my website is it all builds like when I merge to main, it pushes it to Netlify. That's where it's hosted and everything, which is fine and cool. But I thought it might be kind of fun to sit and maybe it's sort of building our own Netlify. I don't know, like saying like let's figure out like how I can build my website with Hugo using Pulumi and then push those files up, to S3 or blob storage. I haven't quite decided where it's going to go yet. We're going to see how we go. And then eventually I was thinking it might be fun. I don't know if we'll get to it today to start experimenting with how we could do different environments. Like maybe I want to have a pre-prod on a certain branch or something like that. So I don't know, we're going to sort of see how it goes. So if we kind of think through the problem set, so if you're not familiar, so Hugo is a static site generator like 11D or Jekyll or what's the one, Gatsby and stuff. So you write these files, and these markdown files amongst other things, and then when you run Hugo, it goes and it creates HTML out of them. Now there is a very large amount of content because this website, the blog covered literal decades, started with a live journal back, I think, in 2001. And then over time, these posts they got into WordPress and then they made it into Hugo. So there's a ton of stuff. So we're going to see how well this all works. But so there's a couple different things I was thinking about how to kind of approach this. I was thinking, one thing that I might want to do is, so Pulumi has a command resource, right? By the way, if you're joining and you don't know what Pulumi is, so Pulumi, we're infrastructure as software. So we're going to write a program using a general purpose programming language. In this case, I think today I'm going to use TypeScript to do it. So I'm going to write a TypeScript program that's going to do all my infrastructure stuff. So Pulumi does have a command resource where I could just run a command as part of my Pulumi program. So I could run the Hugo command that does the build, but I was kind of thinking, I was like, well, I don't know if that's super great because yes, I have Hugo installed on my laptop where I might run my Pulumi program, but if I want to later put this into a GitHub action or something like that, I don't necessarily know that I have Hugo. So I was like, well, we could do some stuff with Docker. So we're going to kind of go and maybe we'll sort of see the order in which of things that make sense. So the first thing that I did is I just cloned down my branch or my repo. I'm going to go ahead and kind of open this up and we're going to start building from that. So let me go ahead and share. I always do this where I thought I was sharing my screen and showing you my repo. By the way, if you want to look at the repo, I'll put it in the chat here. It's just that is the the Hugo site that I thought I was showing you, but I wasn't. But that's okay. It's cool. We're going to go ahead and do some coding now. So if we go into VS Code here, get ourselves a terminal. Don't worry. We're going to make this all very readable for you in just 1 second. Let's go to my to a thing so I can see how big I'm making things. That should be pretty readable. Let's do this. Cool. Cool. Okay, we don't actually care about the netlify. So first thing we're going to do, because this actually is, we're gonna get ourselves off of main. We are not completely YOLO coding here right now. What the first thing now, what's an interesting thing is I can, when I write my Pulumi program, so Pulumi program is basically just a directory with a bunch of files. And I could theoretically throw this all in the root of my existing repository. I could create a Pulumi program in here and then just run it, but things could get a little messy. Now, as it happens, this is not, my Pulumi program is in TypeScript. It's not going to conflict with a package.json or something like that, but seems like not a great practice for me. I mean, you do you, it's fine. But in this case, I'm like, I kind of want to keep my infra code separate, but I want it to live with my application. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my Pulumi program in a directory called infra. Now, that said, I can still run Pulumi from the root, but all of my code. So the first thing we need to do when we want to create ourselves a Pulumi program is we need a directory, and we're going to call that directory infra. So now I'm going to go into my infra directory, and I'm going to create a new Pulumi program in here. So I'm just going to say Pulumi new TypeScript. Now, by default, Pulumi is going to want to name my project after the directory. I don't want to call my project infra, which is why I'm not doing the -y. Just for FYI, if I did -y here, it would not prompt me for stuff, and then I'd have a project called something I don't want it to be called. So we're going to call a new TypeScript, and now it's going to say, what do you want to call it? Well, I don't want to call it infra. We want to call it Matt Stratton Web Infra, let's say, right? So this is the project for that. And then description, we'll just say Pulumi code to deploy Maddie's silly website. I almost said something else. And then the stack nav is going to be called dev. That's our first stack. Cool. Everything looks happy. Now, what's happened though, if we look, so my infra is there. So if I were to go back to my main directory, I can't actually run Pulumi up inside of there. So what I need to do first is I need to move my Pulumi YAML just one level up. So now it's over there. And then there's one other thing that I need to do. I need to tell Pulumi in my configuration file that my Pulumi program is somewhere different. So, so that's main, and then it should look like this. So this is saying the main entry point is in the infra directory. So if now we don't really have, our Pulumi program doesn't really do anything, but just to prove my point, if I go back up at the root here, and if I were to say a Pulumi up, it says, okay, which stack I want to do. I want to do this in dev. And we're not going to let it do anything. All that it would do here is just create the stack, which is fine. But this got us to our point where we feel like that's cool. Now I can do stuff. So let's go. Now, the first thing, like I said, I thought I wanted to do here was I want to use Docker to build my Hugo website. So there's a Docker container that has Hugo, and we should be able to run that container, and it should build the site and then dump that in a directory here. So like, for example, if I just were to run the Hugo command, we'll see how good my build is. So what that did, this is what we're trying to accomplish, right? See how it created a folder called public? We're going to want to then, we want to build that so we get all these files, and then we're going to write some code that will move all these files up to where we want them to go. So we want to accomplish this equivalent. Now, like I said, I could do a Pulumi command resource that would run, but that requires wherever I'm running the Pulumi program that I have Hugo installed. And I don't necessarily know that I'm going to have that. What is, oh, that's code. Okay, that's fine. That's what I wanted to see, that we didn't change anything else. Okay, so we're going to start, and the first thing we need to do is we need to get ourselves our Docker provider. So we're going to do npm, but anybody know what's going to be the problem if I try to do this right now? Remember, I am currently in the root of my application, not infra. So if I were to do an npm install, it's going to install it in the root. So we do, ask me how I know. So we do an npm install of Pulumi Docker. Very exciting. So now if we were to take a look inside our infra, we'll see that we now have Pulumi Docker. Cool. Okay. Well, we want to use it. So we want to import, as Docker from Pulumi Docker. Cool. And I'm going to dump in a link here in a second of what we're going to be looking at is the Docker provider on the Pulumi registry. So take a look at that. If you go to pulumi.com/registry, packages Docker, this is going to be our thing. So we've got ourselves, also by any time, also in the chat, like if I ever forget to share something, like you're like, Maddie, you think your screen is being shared, but it's not, just let me know. All right, cool. So we import stars, so we've got that in there. And we want to be able to get the image that we were going to use. So we're going to say image is a new Docker, and it's a remote image because I'm not going to build it. We're just going to pull it from a registry, right? And it's Hugo. And the name is, give me a second to remember. It is jojomi.hugo.latest. Okay. Except that that's a string. Okay. So that's saying the image, and then we also, that's cool. We'll get that image, but we want a container that we're going to run. So we're going to say container is a new Docker container. Oops. Okay. And we're going to call that one also Hugo because we're very creative. And then this has a couple different arguments. So we need to know its image. Sorry, I'm just, and the image is going to be, sorry, I'm having window problems. Okay, there we go. Is image.name because we created this image. We're going to pull this so we know that's the image we want to use. And then there's a couple things. So when we look at the way this container works, is it needs a volume mounted. So it's expecting within the container there will be a volume called source. And that's where it's going to pull from. And then we're sort of saying like we want to map that to the actual current directory. I think this is how I want to do this. I was trying to remember. It's been a while since I built Hugo with Docker. So we're going to sort of see, but I think this is what I want. And then host path should be accept My only concern is I don't know this is going to work exactly right because I don't know if this is going to be relative to the infra directory, but the problem is you can't pass it a relative path. It needs so we're going to just sort of see how this works. We'll see how we do. Um, we're doing it live. I promised that I would be yelling at things. Okay. So in theory, this should now run a container for us. Um, and should that containers start, I believe, just builds Hugo. So let's kind of see. So if we do a Pulumi up, the first thing we'll see, yes, I want dev. I should have selected my stack. Okay, it's going to tell me what does it want to do. Let's just sort of check. Um, Okay, so see, yes, we can see this host path is not going to be good because it's going to look for the infra. So we need to manipulate that. So if we're using OS, if we're using process CWD, I wonder. This is where my JavaScript. Let's see if there's. Okay, moving up a directory. Okay, so you just do process CWD. Okay, so it should be able to do this. Um, this might work. See how good my JavaScript is here. No, okay. It so it added the so it took. Let's see. Do we? Um. Oh, maybe we need to do this. Let's see. I need to select my stack, so I have to. So I stop doing that. So let's do Pulumi stack select. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and do our Pulumi up and let's see what happens. Okay, if we go ahead and run this, let's see what happens when it loads this container. Well, something happened. Let's check Docker. All right, you're not going to see, but I just want to see if that container is even running. Because I think what happened is I never actually did anything with the container. So let's see if we go back and take a look at container, our argument we can kind of run. We give it a name. So let's say we want to say the command to start the container. Oh, okay, so I think it also wants. Let's see what's going on with our friend Docker. Sorry, sharing some things on my screen is not great. Okay, I am not likely to suggest Docker to anybody if it's going to keep yelling at me about this. Okay, let's go to the dashboard. Okay, so that container didn't actually start. Um, okay, exited. Let's see. I don't, yeah. Um, I apologize. My machine is just sort of frozen up on Docker nonsense right now. So give me a second to figure out why. It's entirely possible that it's mad because it's not updated. So give me a second. Okay, so while we're thinking about this a little bit, let's actually try to go a different direction. And we talked about running the command. So if we go and we look at the Pulumi command resource, oops, okay, which is kind of a thing that's in preview. And I think this is it. Okay, so I'm gonna drop this in the chat. No, I didn't set the command on the Docker, but I thought that image would do its own thing. So this is the Docker the image that we're using. Um, oops, is this one? Oh, geez, I cannot. There we go. So I think you're right, and it's like so we didn't run that, but I do want to sort of poke around at the. So let's just while my Docker is doing its craziness here, let's go ahead and just see if we can just have some fun with the command resource. So we can leave our code as it is that's doing the Docker container that's not doing anything, but let's go ahead and run the command. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is we need to, go ahead and install it, right? So we're going to do, remember, oops, npm install pulumi/command. Okay. Okay, so then if we go and we'll say import star, oops, as actually, I think in this case, we're not doing star. We're actually going to just import because it's a local command, and it's going to be from Pulumi command. So now, if we go and we say this is a local command, so Hugo build, right? We'll just say is a new local command. Okay, and the command we're just going to run is just Hugo. Okay, and let's see. The command to run on create. Okay, so it's create is Hugo. That's our command. What does it not like? Implicitly has a new any type. Oh, there you go. Right, so that should actually run. So just out of funsies, let's try to do our Pulumi up. Sure, let's go ahead and run. Let's see what happens. Okay, well that was fun. Um, why didn't it like that? Create. Okay, the creating failed. Aha. Let's try this. Because I was not in a directory that had. Okay, well that's a little bit better. Um, this is probably because Docker's not running right now. No, okay. We are fighting with Docker because that's a lot of fun. All right. So let's do this. Let's go ahead and get rid of our Docker pieces and just see if the command works. Yeah, this is just because my Docker's in a bad place right now, which means none of my fun stuff is going to work here. Okay, Docker, how about you quit? You just go all the way away. So that should be no response from Damon. Okay, good. Okay. Now, okay, Docker image is starting. I'm going to go ahead and just, wow, Docker's just terrible on my machine today. It just keeps freezing up. Okay. We're still getting exit status 255. Like, so it's still something about that command resource it doesn't like. Let's just be crazy here. Okay, so the command works when it's that, but let's see. So for some reason, but what if we do the command like this? Okay. Well, come on, Docker, get your act together. Yeah, it just if I could get rid of okay. 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 So at least we got rid of all that Docker stuff. Let's see if we can figure out why this command doesn't work. Doesn't do anything. So let's go back and look at our, yeah, the dash F. So if we kind of look at this command preview, it's, I mean, I don't think this matters, but so it's new local dot command. We gave it a name. So it just says which can return is run a command that can return a value. Okay. Um, hmm. Yeah, I'm trying to the command to be executed so it has a name, the working directory in which to run the command from. Okay, I think that might be part of where this is happening. So if we do dir and then we do this again, that might help because we actually want it to run. Oh, that looks promising. Hey, that did something. Ta-da! So it built. Okay, so that's good. All right. So we have our files, which all now need to get up into somewhere else. And we're gonna, I think for starters, let's do we'll just sort of put this in an S3 bucket. Um and kind of work from there. So if we go back and sort of say like, okay, we're going to do a couple fun things just to get our life in order. We have our project. I already have all my AWS stuff kind of set in my environment variables, so that should all be fine. Um, so we need to just give ourselves. Let's see. We're gonna start with. Let's go back here. Let's do npm install Pulumi slash AWS. Okay. So a couple, we start with kind of our fun stuff. So let's import star from start as AWS from at Pulumi slash AWS. Okay, cool. So we did that. Um, let's go ahead and bucket, bucket, no, buckets, new, oh, That's why new AWS bucket. Website. Okay. And we don't even really care about that. Okay, good enough. We need to do a few things here. We want to go ahead and we're going to use like the file asset to sort of upload all these files. And this is where it's going to get a little bit tricky compared to some things we might have done before because we got a lot of files to bring up. So just give me a second. I had something I was looking at before. Where did oh my goodness, this is what happens when I don't save it because there was like a little bit of code I already wrote for this. And let's see, okay. It's not that one. Oops. Was it this one? Sorry for I'm looking for my files. But what we're going to do is the whole point of this is we want to be able to crawl through all of those files. And we have a whole bunch of let's see, I think it's actually. Okay, so this is. So basically, this is just a bit of code. So this is recursively calls a provided directory, applies, so what we want to do here, oops. Sorry, I forgot we need to have the FS in there so that we can do stuff with that. And I think we also need to get yep. Okay. So if we've got our bucket, and actually let's go ahead and make the bucket a little bit more of the way that we want it to be. We're going to go ahead and we don't need to. Hey, this is going to basically just give us kind of our thing. And then what we want to do is so we had our crawl directory, right? Now what's going to happen here is we, okay, path to website content. So this we're just going to go ahead and say is we just gonna say that's a, or I'm sorry, it's the slash public. Okay. And then this should go ahead and create all of our bucket objects the way that we want. Hello, hello. And let's just try to kick out this last little bit of value, which should end up giving us everything. Okay, so for funsies now, let's see what happens if we do a Pulumi up. Okay, so we're seeing this syncing contents. That's the console log that happens. And it's sure taken its time, but that's a lot of files. That's what I was concerned that would be interesting with how many files there were to go through. Okay. Oh, yeah. So set that there. Oops. All right. Also, we're running the Pulumi and the up in the wrong place. Okay, so for reference, while this is going, remember what this did is it set, kind of the config for this particular stack versus this, which is the overall program. All right, so kind of chugging away here. Yeah, that syncing contents. That function certainly takes a while. Oh yeah, now this is going to take a hot second because there are lots and lots of files which I probably should have YOLO'd this because this is still, remember, just the Pulumi preview. Now, part of the reason I want to do this, though, is a lot of times we do demos and stuff, and we're like, throw 2 files up there. Well, I don't know about you, but like, most websites are more than 2 files, unless I guess SPAs. But even SPAs have lots and lots of files that have to end up in there. Well, this is, yeah. So this is very exciting. We can sit and just sort of watch this go. But because there were a lot of files, because as I said, if you're just joining late, this website that we're putting up there is a blog where the post started in 2001. So it's 20 years worth of blog posts and all their supporting images and all of the various other pieces and parts that make up my website. So again, we're talking about some real world stuff. What I think will be fun, we've got about 15 minutes left, so we'll sort of get this working. But like kind of my future state of what I want to do with this is also, again, as you may recall, if you've joined us before and not late, this is requiring Hugo. Like I'll have to figure out what's going on with Docker on my machine, why I can't get the Docker to go. But like instead of using the command here, this resource, which is what runs Hugo and builds all the files in public, we want it to happen from Docker so that I could put this into CI/CD. I could put this into my GitHub Actions. And as well, what would be good is to then take it to the next level and say, like, okay, maybe we have a branch that is called preview. right? And so you merge to that first, and when we merge to there, it'll deploy to preview.mattstratton.com or something, just to see the difference. Or we can also play some games where I think maybe it might be fun to like have it deploy because it's static files, so it's storage. Yeah. Okay. Do you want to perform this update? Yeah, let's go ahead and just do this. But maybe it could deploy to blobs to a static website on Azure and also to AWS at the same time. So we have them both available for the multi-cloud necessity that is my personal website. Hey, at least I'm not running it all in Kubernetes. Where this, that's the next level of that. So we know this is going to take a minute. But so while that's happening, what the hell is going on with Docker? I mean, I think what the hell's going on is my computer probably needs to be restarted. Okay, so now it's actually doing some stuff. So we're creating that S3 bucket. Okay, this is going to take a minute while this is going, but we should be able. Now, one thing that'll be interesting is when we go to load this in a web browser, it may not 100% work because of this. So this is the config file for Hugo, and it's saying the base URL needs to be mattstratton.com. So all the links it's going to create and style sheets and stuff are going to look for this. But we can pass this as an argument to the Hugo build command. So that's sort of one of those things where we can figure out what the domain is going to be, where we're pushing it to, and pass those along. But yeah, there's most likely when we go to actually crack this open, it's not going to work. It's not going to be a beautiful looking website for two reasons. One being my website is not a beautiful looking website, but also we'll probably find some 404s on what it's thinking the style sheets are. Actually, to be honest, it might be a cross-site issue. It won't load the style sheet because it's going to try to load it from mattstratton.com and not the S3 origin. But yeah, there's I think some fun stuff we can continue to do. Maybe I'll do this again. I don't know what we have on the docket for next week's PulumiVision. Maybe we'll continue with this. Maybe we'll do something else different. But yeah, I'm trying to think about. There's not really like a necessarily better way to do this particular part here, because it's just like you just got to move a lot of files around. I mean, the argument could be made, I guess, to like archive it and then, but I don't really know how we would want to like, sort of inflate it inside of S3. The other thing that would be we'll have to sort of see how this goes. This is I don't know about you that are watching. To me, this is interesting. Hopefully it's slightly interesting to you. What else is going? Yeah, and like, I mean, how are things going to you? Oh, it is snowing. So, okay, so fun fact. It was originally they were predicting, I'm here in Chicago, they were predicting a ton of snow for today. And so last night at about 7 or 8 o'clock at night, the school district was like, okay, we're calling a snow day. Because like a couple weeks ago, we had a whole bunch of snow. They didn't call a snow day and everybody got mad. So, and then this morning and like up until about an hour ago, like there's been not only no snow, like all the snow we had was all melted. Like my backyard was, I mean, there was ice, but it was mostly grass. But now I'm looking out the window, there is some snow. So at least we got something is starting to happen. Although I understand just a little bit south of me has been getting pretty hammered with all the snow. Wow, this is when it actually has to upload the files. Strange enough, versus just pretending to it takes a little bit longer. I'm thinking we can blame all my kids who are home from school and are, on Minecraft and Roblox and stuff right now, taking up all of my bandwidth. That must be the problem with why this is taking as long as it's taking. Yeah, and you know what? I do apologize that the whole Docker thing went kind of really south. I don't really understand what happened there. That was definitely a Matt's computer thing. Although again, I did promise on Twitter that I would be yelling at my computer, so I guess I asked for that. Seems like we should tweet about that and say like, yeah, that actually really did happen. Actually, Twitter's been having a bit of a day too, right? You know, so um, how about the rest of you? Like, how are your days going here so far? Is your day almost over? Is your day just beginning? I don't know where you are. Oh my God, this is taking a long time. Okay, well, uh, and again, we could be experimenting with the Docker provider if I could get Docker working in my if Docker was wanting to work on my machine right now, which it so doesn't. Um, Yeah, so I think next time I try this, maybe I don't do my blog that's 20 years worth of stuff. Maybe I do like actually the Arrested DevOps website would work just as well. That's built in Go. It's got not quite as much, but you know, we're kind of in it now, right? So uh, you know, there's 7 minutes left in this stream. Hopefully it'll finish uploading and we'll be able to see what actually happened. Um, when that stuff is done. So a couple things. So thinking about right, like what we kind of saw, the and there's definitely some more stuff we can do. You know, we can kind of do some stuff with getting the domain in front of it, getting if we wanted to kind of get a cert installed and all that. So there's definitely future things. Um, and sort of you could make the argument to be like, well, why would I do this? And actually, I'm starting to feel like what I'm showing here is a commercial for Netlify for why you should just put your static site on Netlify because it does this all for you. But that's not always the right solution, right? Like you might have this scenario where you're like, I have a static website and I want to have it in multiple places. Or I'll even tell you, like, for the case of, so like the DevOps Days website, so that's actually hosted on Netlify. It runs Hugo, all this stuff. You may notice a pattern for code that I write. And I mean, Netlify is amazing and stuff like that, but they could have an outage. Something could happen. So it's like you kind of want to have a backup solution of some kind. So you might say, or just maybe something will happen down the road. You want to have a multiple deployment target maybe that's set up. So you can say like, okay, I'm pushing it here, but I'm also pushing it somewhere else. So that way I have that available to me and where that particularly goes. This is a lot of files. Is there a way, does this count? I didn't think there's a VS Code doesn't have a like count the files in the directory, but what we could do, right, is we can always, so let's see, so if we do, oops, what the public, yeah, we're uploading 4,300 files right now, so sorry. This is the thing I should have figured out before. Okay, let's think about like a couple other things that maybe might be fun that are happening. Conferences might be starting to happen again. I don't know. KubeCon EU. Did anybody submit a talk to KubeCon EU? I think we should be hearing about that in the next month or so. Talks got selected. Fingers crossed. Where this will kind of go. Yeah, this is sorry for the watching paint dry part of my live coding. The Yeah, you never realize you're going to tune into a live stream to watch 4,500 files being uploaded to an S3 bucket. But hey, it's been a while since I've done like sysadmin real work, so maybe I feel like I'm doing real stuff here. It's okay. It's cool. Um, what are like some, I don't know, like real world problems around this? Like again, we're doing a static site generator, and I know that that seems like a thing you don't need to do because there'd be other ways to do it. Um, but we do things like this, right? Like it is still a matter of like maybe I'm using Hugo as my static site build, but again, similarly, you could be running a build that gets your app where it needs to go. So what I'm trying to get to here is just sort of this overall thing about like how does this all go together, right? Because we talk about like in isolation a lot, like okay, how do I do this one thing? How do I get a container pushed up there? But there's all the parts that make your website exist, like the endpoints and the certificates and all that. So this is sort of my ongoing series to try to get there. What I'm thinking is if I, hey Anton, just in time to watch the tail end of uploading 4,000 files to an S3 bucket. Um, Anton, it's been like forever, right? Like we haven't seen. Oh my god. But anyway, um, it should like on as long as the files, the output files don't actually change, Plumi's not going to need to upload 4,300 of them every time. Yeah, 4,200 left. That's about right. So this might be a thing where we just tune in next week when we move on to the next thing, and I'll let this keep going because I suspect we're not going to finish in time. I should have counted these files before I decided to use this particular website. I knew there were a lot, but I didn't think about how many there were. But whatever, sometimes you have a lot of files to upload. It can happen. Um, cool. Okay. Well, it's still, yeah, the plan, yeah, the preview will still take a little bit of time, engine, right? But it's still not just right now. The downside is this is not how long it takes Plumi to run. This is just the I mean, half of this, I don't want to say it's network bandwidth, but it's just file transfer across, right? Because this is now transferring a whole bunch of things and it's happening serially, not in parallel, right? So that's something to sort of think about a way to optimize. That might be something I'll think about before next week. But that said, speaking of which, if you have not mashed the subscribe or follow button in Twitch or in YouTube, depending upon where you're at, do that so you know when we're coming up next. We do this every Thursday at the same time. And next week, I don't know yet. I might bring on a guest. I might just keep hacking on this a little bit more, but hopefully with a little less boringness. So thanks for joining. And as always, we will see you on the internet.